Let's try it again. All right. So last week we started talking about a concept, leaving people better than you found them. And as I said before, that when we come into people's lives, or when people come into our lives, you don't know what those people have gone through, what trauma, what traumatic experience they've had in their lives. And when we come into people's lives, we want to come in to make their lives better, adding value to their lives, not subtracting from their lives because we failed to deal with our own stuff. Sometimes what we do is something that's very selfish. Whether it's with friendships, relationships, it doesn't matter. We are very selfish at times. We know that we have issues that we are struggling with, whether emotional, whether mental, psychological, financial, whatever. We have issues that we're struggling with in our own personal lives. And then what we do, instead of rectifying those situations on our own, we come into a relationship with someone else, totally disregarding where they are at in their lives, and then we superimpose on them our needs. I need this, I need that. And then it's like, well, you're not my friend if you don't help me to deal with this need. You're not my friend if you don't help me to deal with that need. You're not a real spouse if you don't help me to deal with this or to deal with that. Give me 1 second. So we enter into people's lives and we superimpose on them our needs, the needs that we have for ourselves. I need this, I need that. And if you don't help me with this, then you're not a good friend. If you don't help me achieve this goal or this issue in my life, then you're not a good spouse. And it's very selfish, all right? When we find people, when we enter into people's lives, we want to make the people's lives better. Right? We want to make people's lives better, and we don't want to come into people's lives taken from them, to compensate for the things that we fail to do for ourselves. And when you think about it, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extended to him this. Allah says, "Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa." Didn't we find you as an orphan and we gave you shelter? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى, and we found you astray and we gave you guidance. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى, and we found you asking people and we sufficed you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his life better than when he found him. Allah said, I found you in this state, but then I did this. I found you in this state, and then I did that, making your situation better. This is where the word tarbiya comes from. The word tarbiya, we call it nurturing, all right, education. It has so many different meanings. But the legal meaning of the word tarbiya is insha al-shay halan fa halan ila al-ghaya. Is to nurture something from one phase to the next until it reaches its goal of perfection. That is what tarbiya means. So when we're raising our children, it's called tarbiyat al-awlad. It's called nurturing our children. We are nurturing them, cultivating them from one phase to the next, and our experience with them until they reach a level of perfection. That is how our entire lives as Muslims should be with one another. Tarbiya. That my relationship with you as a friend should be tarbiya. That we are making each other better. Phase after we go through the different phases of life, as we begin to evolve and go through the different phases of life, I am making your life better. You are making my life better. And so we both reach perfection. And perfection, obviously, within the context of the human experience, right? Perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as human beings, right? As human beings, we have a level of, perfection on a human level. Which is still deficient in comparison to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfection. So the word tarbiya actually means to develop something, to nurture it from one phase to the next until it reaches its level, the highest level of perfection. That is the extent of our relationships with one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did not find you an orphan and I gave you shelter. The ultimate level of perfection for the ultimate, human experience for an orphan is to have shelter, to have some place to live, to have a roof over your head, right? To have a roof over your head for someone who is not an orphan is not perfection. It's perfection for an orphan because that is something that an orphan is lacking. To someone who grows up in a home with two parents, having a roof over your head means nothing. It's normal for you. It's normacy. But to an orphan, it's perfection. My life is perfect now. I have a roof over my head. So perfection is, based upon, how that particular individual interprets it based upon where they are in their lives. You understand? Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa. Didn't we find you an orphan and we gave you shelter? Wa wajadaka dhalan fahada. And we found you misguided and we gave you guidance. For some of us, having guidance, finding Islam was the icing on the cake for our lives. Maybe all of the other areas of our lives were okay. Financially, we were okay. Domestically, we were okay. As it relates to family and children, health, everything was okay. But one missing piece of our puzzle was guidance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us, and that was, the icing on our cake. So for some people, finding guidance was all they needed. And then there are some people who need guidance, right? Needed guidance, and they need something else. All right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the believers, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَذَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَى مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ حَتَّى يَمِيزَ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. That Allah will not leave the believers in the state that they are in until He separates, until He distinguishes al-khabith min at-tayyib, that which is good from that which is bad. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us the trials and tribulations that we need in our lives as Muslims so that He can separate those of us who truly believe for those of us who are, faking the funk, so to say. Those of us who, profess one thing, but in our hearts is something totally different. Eventually that will expose itself. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us trial and tribulation after trial and tribulation, because that is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distinguishes al-khabith min al-tayyib, that which is good from that which is evil. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to leave us in our state until He gives us an opportunity to reach a level of perfection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the believers, واذكروا إذ أنتم قليل مستضعفون في الأرض تخافون أن يتخطفكم الناس فآواكم وأيدكم بنصره ورزقكم من الطيبات لعلكم تشكرون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 26, and remember, Allah is reminding, right? Allah is reminding us as an ummah where we were and how He took us from one state to the next. Made our human experience perfect. And we have to ask ourselves in our interaction with one another as spouses, as fathers and sons, and mothers and daughters, friends, companions, associates, Muslims in Islam, are we making people's lives better or are we making people's lives worse? You need to ask yourself that question right now. All of the people that know you, all of the people that you have an interaction with on a daily basis in your life right now, will they say that you add value to their lives or do you subtract from the value in their lives? Are you an asset to the life of other people or are you a burden, a liability to the lives of other people? Are people constantly cutting you off, disassociating themselves from you, separating themselves from you because you don't really add value to the life of other people? You take from the value that other people have in their lives? Or do people welcome you into their lives because of the value that you bring to their lives? Ask yourself that question. We're going to do some self-reflection here tonight. For the little bit of time that I have you guys with me, we're going to do some self-reflection here tonight. I am so tired of talking and then we're taking the information and we're applying it to everybody else except ourselves. So tonight what we're going to do is something a little different. Tonight we're going to ask ourselves a list of questions to see how much value we add to the lives of other people, or are we a liability and a burden to the lives of other people? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and remember, وَاذْكُرُوا, and remember, إِذْ أَنْتُمْ قَلِيلٌ مُسْتَضْعَفُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Remember when you are a small group. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to the Sahaba. Remember when you were a small group, مُسْتَضْعَفُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, weak and oppressed in the earth. This was their original state. Some of us were there. You were a small group, weak, oppressed in the earth. تَخَافُونَ أَن يَتَخَطَّفَكُمُ النَّاسِ. You were in fear of people transgressing against your rights, transgressing against, the things that were important to you. فَآوَاكُمْ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you protection from them. وَأَيَّدَكُمْ بِنَصْرِهِ, and He aided you and assisted you with His help. وَرَزَقَكُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, and He provided for you from all the things that were good. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that perhaps you may be grateful. Perhaps you may be grateful by extending the same to others. Because part of our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is extending the blessings that Allah has given to us to other people. That's how we show our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do you show your gratitude to Allah? By whatever Allah extended to you, you extend to other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu when he said he will never forgive his cousin for engaging in the lie that was told on Aisha. He said, Wallahi, I will never give him another dinar sadaqah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat in Surah An-Nur. وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Why don't you forgive and overlook? Wouldn't you want Allah to forgive and overlook? Just as you want Allah to forgive you, just as you want Allah to forgive and pardon and overlook your faults and your mistakes, you have to extend that to other people. That's the way that works. That's how you show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't take the blessings that Allah give you and hoard it for yourself and not share that with other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and remember when you were a small group, مُسْتَضْعَفُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, you were a small group, weak and oppressed in the earth. You were in fear of everyone, in fear of people transgressing against you. And then Allah gave you protection, gave you shelter, gave you help and assistance, provided for you of all of the things that are good, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that perhaps you may be grateful. Meaning perhaps you may extend the same thing to others. Because that's how we show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We show gratitude to Allah by extending to other people what He has extended to us. Allah told Abu Bakr, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Wouldn't you want Allah to forgive you? Why don't you forgive and overlook? Wouldn't you want Allah to forgive and overlook you? Your faults, your mistakes. But what we do is we become selfish. Oh, I found Islam. I got guidance. Everybody else is astray. You're astray. You are off it. You're not on the sunnah. You're off it. You're astray because you got guidance, mashallah. But you don't extend yourself to make sure that other people have the same guidance that you have, mashallah. You're broke. You don't have any money. I'm tired of poor people. I'm tired of people talking about all the money they got or whatever the case may be. You got all this money. You're financially stable, mashallah. Do you work to make sure that other people are financially stable? As a sign of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You got Islam all figured out. You know your religion, mashallah. You got it all figured out. Do you extend yourself to other people to make sure that they got the religion figured out like you? No, because then that would be making other people equal with us, and we don't want that. We want that exclusivity. We want that distinction. And that's part of our problem. And the Prophet ﷺ, he extended this to other people. Every person the Prophet ﷺ came in contact with, he added value to their lives. He left them better than he found them. Every person the Prophet ﷺ came in contact with, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, he made their lives better than when he found them. I'll give you a couple examples. One is an example of a man that I mentioned before, Zahir ibn Haram, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he used to be a slave, right? The Prophet ﷺ saw him in the marketplace one day and he grabbed him from behind and he said, "Man yashtari hadha al-abd?" Who will buy this slave? Right? And the Prophet ﷺ was joking. But he said, "Man yashtari hadha al-abd?" Who will buy this slave? And Zahir, he said, "Latajiduni ya Rasulullah kasidan." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, you'll find me worthless. Nobody would purchase me. Nobody would purchase me. I'm worthless." That's how the Prophet ﷺ walked into his life. The Prophet ﷺ walked into his life while he saw himself as worthless. He said, "Latajiduni ya Rasulullah kasidan." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, if you're referring to me, nobody would buy me. You will find me worthless goods. Nobody would purchase me." That's how some people see themselves, as worthless. They have low self-esteem, low sense of self-worth, insecure, to the end of it. This is how we walk into people's lives. We walk into people's lives and they're already down on themselves. And what we do, we push them further and further instead of uplifting them and empowering them and making their lives better. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Bal anta indallahi ghalin." He said, "No, you are priceless to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To Allah, you are priceless." Right? The Prophet made his life better or worse. The Prophet walked into his life, he said about himself, "I'm worthless." The Prophet ﷺ said, "You are not worthless, you are priceless." Just because other people don't understand your worth or don't respect or value your worth doesn't mean that you are worthless. You understand? Because other people don't see your value does not mean that you don't have value. Because other people don't see your worth, it doesn't mean that you are worthless. It just means that they fail to see it. You understand? It just means that they fail to see it. We got to stop living vicariously through the vision of other people, the vision that other people have for us. You understand? Stop living vicariously through the way that other people see you. Just because they don't see your worth doesn't mean that you are worthless. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Bal anta indallahi ghalin." To Allah you are priceless. Did he make his life better or worse? Another example, on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, قال قام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في صلاته فكنا معه. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day stood up to make salah, and we stood up to pray alongside him or behind him. فقال أعرابي وهو في الصلاة اللهم ارحمني ومحمدا ولا ترحم معنا أحدا. A man stood up, Bedouin Arab stood up in the prayer while he's in the salah. He said, "Oh Allah, have mercy on me and Muhammad and don't have mercy on anybody else. Have mercy on me and Muhammad and don't have mercy on anybody else." فلما سلم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال للأعرابي لقد حجرت الواسعة. When the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم finished his prayer, he turned to the man and he said, لقد حجرت الواسعة. You have made something that is for everybody restricted only to a few. Don't restrict Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Allah's mercy is for everybody. And then this same man went over into the corner of the masjid and he urinated in the masjid. And the Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ مُيَسِّرِينَ وَلَمْ تُبْعَثُوا مُعَسِّرِينَ. The Prophet said that you all have been sent to make things easy on people, and you have not been sent to make difficulty on people. The Sahaba ran to go grab the man. He stood up, walked into the middle of to a corner in the masjid, right, to urinate in the masjid. He's a Bedouin Arab. He hasn't been domesticated. He doesn't know, right? He doesn't know any better. So the Sahaba got up to go grab him. The Prophet ﷺ said, leave him, let him finish. He said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ مُيَسِّرِينَ. You have been sent to make things easy for people. وَلَمْ تُبْعَثُوا مُعَسِّرِينَ. You have not been sent to make things difficult for people. Did he make the man's life better or worse? Did he make their lives better or worse? Any person he came in contact with, he made their lives better. He made their lives better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described him as rahmatan lil alameen, a mercy for all mankind. We have to add value to lives of other people. Each and every person that we come in contact with, we have to add value to their lives. Whether it is with our knowledge, many of us believe that we have knowledge. Many of us believe that we know so much about Islam. But the knowledge that we are sharing about Islam, is it making people's lives better or worse? If the knowledge or the information that you claim that you have about Islam, and you are sharing that information with other people, and their lives don't seem to be getting better, right, then you are not adding value to people's lives. You are subtracting from the value of people's lives. You understand? The knowledge that we have, that we claim that we have, should be making people's lives better. How is it that a person can claim to have knowledge of Islam, and every time he opens his mouth, every time he stands up to speak, every time he gives a lecture, every time he shares from his heart, from his mind, and from his papers and the books that he's reading from, shares that information with other people, yet year after year after year, the lives of the people that he is talking to don't seem to be getting any better? Is there something wrong with the knowledge, the information? Is there something wrong with the delivery? Is there something wrong with the people that's on the receiving end of the information? Where does the problem lie? Where does the problem lie? And I mean, at some point, we have to think to ourselves. Some of these imams, students of knowledge, preachers and teachers have been around for years, have been around for decades, have been giving lectures for decades. And the lives of the people that some of these brothers talk to have not improved one iota. Have not improved. And at some point, we have to reevaluate our condition, our situation, and say, where is the problem? Is the problem in the information? Is the problem in the delivery of the information? Or is the problem with those on the receiving end of the information? Or is all of it the problem? We have to identify where the problem is, because the Prophet ﷺ, when he talked to people, people's lives changed immediately, overnight. When the Prophet ﷺ conveyed information to people, their lives changed almost immediately. Yet, we have preachers, teachers, imams, students of knowledge, whatever title they want to call themselves, right? Preaching to people for years, decades. Since the 90s, you have been preaching, and yet the lives of the people that you are preaching to has not improved. As a matter of fact, some people's lives have gotten worse listening to knowledge or information that has been given by some of these brothers. I'm just stating facts, man. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just stating facts, man. The condition of our hearts? Possibly. Because if the knowledge is not penetrating, how can you make somebody's life? How can you make somebody's life better when the heart that is supposed to be the vessel, carrying this information is not soft enough to receive it, to be receptive to it? So it could be the hardening of the hearts. Could be the delivery of the information. Maybe the way that it's being delivered is, in a manner that is, unlike. But we're looking at example after example. The Prophet ﷺ, when he conveyed information to people, their lives changed immediately. He added value to the lives of people. So with your knowledge should have impact on people. I'll give you an example. The hadith of Muawiyah ibn Hakam, who stood with the Prophet ﷺ and prayed. A man sneezed and he said, Alhamdulillah, in the salah. And Muawiyah ibn Hakam, he said, Yarhamukallah. Right? And then, the Sahaba began banging on their knees to try to get him to stop talking. After the salat was over, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Man al-mutakallim, who was the guy that was speaking in the salat? Muawiyah said, it was me. It was me, O Messenger of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, come here. He said, Inna hadhihi salawat, these prayers, la yasluhu fiha shay'un min kalam an-nas. It is not appropriate for you to speak with the normal speech of people while you're in the prayer. The prayer is for takbir, the praising of Allah, the glorification of Allah, the magnification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muawiyah, listen to what he said. Muawiyah ibn Hakam, he said, بِأَبِي وَأُمِّي مَا رَأَيْتُ مُعَلِّمًا قَبْلَهُ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ أَحْسَنَ تَعْلِيمًا مِنْهُ. He said, may my mother and my father be ransomed for him. He said, I have never in my life seen a teacher who was more superb in his mannerisms of teaching, not before him, and never will I find anyone after him more superb in his method of teaching than the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Wallahi ma kaharani, wala darabani, wala shatami. He said, Wallahi, he didn't insult me, he didn't hit me, he didn't use harsh words towards me. He simply said that these prayers, it is not befitting, right? It's not befitting, you know what I mean? It's not befitting for you to, speak like this in your prayer. This is knowledge. Let your knowledge add value to the lives of other people. He said, Wallahi, he said, may my mother and my father be ransomed for him. He said, I have never seen a teacher, an educator. I have never seen a teacher or an educator that was more superb in his method of teaching, not before him, and never will I find one after him more superb in his methods of teaching than the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't hit me, he didn't insult me, he didn't belittle me, right? Being effective with your knowledge. Sometimes being effective with our silence. Sometimes your silence is more powerful than the words that come out of your mouth. Sometimes your silence is more powerful than the words that actually come out of your mouth. And sometimes we're around people and we don't say anything, and our silence is power. The scholars, they have a saying, إِذَا كَانَ الْكَلَامِ مِنْ فِضَّةٍ فَالسُّكُوتُ مِنْ ذَهَبٍ, that if speaking is silver, then silence is golden. And wallah al-adhim, sometimes being silent is more powerful than saying anything. So when you're around people, let your silence, add value to the lives of people. Many of the salaf of the past, the scholars of the past, they didn't speak sometimes, not because they were incompetent or they didn't know, they were ignorant. They didn't speak because they actually knew. Sometimes silence is powerful, right? The story of Maryam, references how powerful silence is. Maryam couldn't even speak, and her silence was just as powerful had she spoken. When you look at what Jesus said to defend his mother, if Maryam could speak on her own behalf, what do you think she would have said? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a miracle, right, allowed Jesus to speak on behalf of his own mother. because she took an oath not to talk. However, if Maryam was allowed to speak, she would have exposed the whole situation. And that would have been powerful, but her silence was even more powerful. When the Prophet ﷺ, when Umar bin al-Khattab anhu had heard that the Prophet ﷺ divorced his wives, he got dressed, he prayed Salatul Fajr, and then he went to the house of the Prophet ﷺ. He told Bilal to go ask the Prophet ﷺ for permission for me to enter, because Umar wanted to know if he divorced his wives. So Bilal went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "Ista'adhana alayka Umar bin al-Khattab." فسكت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يتكلم. Bilal went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "O Messenger of Allah, Umar bin al-Khattab is at the door asking permission to enter." The Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything. Didn't say anything. So Umar waited for a little bit and he thought about leaving. And then Umar went back again. And he asked permission again. And the Prophet ﷺ told Umar to enter. It was because the Prophet ﷺ's silence that allowed Umar to go back again and ask permission to enter again. How powerful silence is. Because had the Prophet ﷺ said, "No, I don't want any company, Umar would have walked away and no one would have ever gotten the real story. But because the Prophet ﷺ was silent and didn't say anything, it gave Umar the encouragement to come back and ask again. And when he asked the second time, he got in, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, "Ya Rasulullah, hal talaqta nisa'ak? Have you divorced your wives?" And the Prophet ﷺ smiled and he said, "No, I didn't divorce my wives." And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, "Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar." Because there were fathers waiting in the masjid to find out whether or not the Prophet ﷺ had divorced his wives. Silence is powerful. Let your silence add value to the lives of other people. Let your silence add value to the lives of other people. Sometimes you call a person, they don't pick the phone up. They saw you calling. And sometimes we say, "Oh, I called you the other day, you didn't pick up." I saw your call. I didn't pick up for a reason. I didn't pick up for a reason. Because if I had picked up the phone and said to you what I wanted to say to you, we probably wouldn't be friends right now. Respect my silence. The fact that I didn't respond means that, I was working through some things. I'm okay now. Silence is powerful, man. And sometimes we're friends with people. Sometimes as spouses, we're spouses to people. And we don't say anything, and then your spouse is chiding you, your spouse is, berating you with all of these accusations, or why you're not saying nothing. Because if I say something right now, it's probably not going to be the best thing to say. Let my silence be powerful. Let my silence be powerful. Sometimes I don't say anything, not out of fear, not because I don't want to say anything, not because I'm incompetent, not because I can't. It's because my silence is powerful. The fact that I'm not saying anything should alert you to something greater. The fact that I'm not saying anything should alert you to the fact that, just leave it alone. Let our friendship add value to the lives of other people. Some of us do find silence as ignorance, absolutely. And that's only because we're ignorant to what silence really means. Some of us find silence as ignorance, but that's only because we're ignorant to what silence really indicates. Right, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyakul khair aw liyasmut." That whoever from amongst you believes in Allah on the last day, let him either speak good or keep silent. And we're not talking about silent treatment. We're talking about not saying anything at a particular moment in our lives, because if we were to say what we really wanted to say, it would ruin relationships. It would ruin marriages. It would ruin friendships. It would ruin relationships between parents and children, or children and parents. So we don't say anything. I'm not talking about silent treatment and not communicating with your spouse. I'm talking about being in a place where you have a choice between saying how you feel and remaining silent until you can work through whatever you're going through at that moment and articulate it in a way where you do not destroy your relationship with the person. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a refusal to communicate. All right? Let your friendship add value to the lives of other people, the people that you consider friends right now. The people that you consider friends right now, will they say that you add value to their lives? The people that hold you as a friend right now, would they say that your friendship has added value to their lives? Can they say about you that from the day that I met you all the way up into this very moment, your friendship to me, your companionship to me has added nothing but value to my life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captured the friendship between the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. And remember when the two of them were in the cave. Two of them in the cave. And one of them said to his companion, لا تحزن, don't grieve, don't fear. إن الله معنا, indeed Allah is with us. And it increased his faith. It increased his conviction. And this was the relationship between the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr. The Prophet ﷺ added value to the life of Abu Bakr. He added value to the life of Abu Bakr. My friendship to you should be an asset. I should be an asset to you. If the people that you consider friends to you right now, all of the people in your cell phone, all of the people in your circle right now, if you can't say that they add value to your life, then you have to ask yourself, why are you still friends with them? If they are not adding value to your life, or you're adding value to their lives, then why are you even friends? Why? We should cherish our human experiences, the people that we come in contact with. These experiences, man, are to be cherished. We're going to remember all of these experiences in the next life. In the hereafter, we will remember every single experience that we had in this life. Every single experience that we had in this life, we will recall that Yawm al-Qiyamah. And we'll be scrambling when we're under pressure Yawm al-Qiyamah, looking for the people that we added value to their lives to possibly intercede for us. To intercede on our behalf. So allow your friendship with people, right, to be a value. Right? When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was holding the Prophet ﷺ's head while he was on his deathbed, he was already dead. And the Prophet and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he reached down and he kissed the Prophet ﷺ right here in between his eyes. And he said, "Tibta hayyan wa mayyitan." He said, you were good in life and in death. You understand? You were good to me. You were good in life and in death. Let your money be a value, an asset to other people, not just to yourself. The Prophet ﷺ, and many of us can't even fathom that. Many of us can't even fathom allowing our wealth to be a benefit to somebody else other than ourselves. Wallah al-Azim, there's no feeling in the world like taking your children. Obviously, spending money on your family is the first priority, right? The Prophet ﷺ said the best money that a man can spend is on his own family. Not looking outside your family first to go spend the money on. The best people that you can spend your money on is your own family. Right? Zainab, the wife of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, she told him, go ask the Prophet ﷺ if a woman gets charity, gets sadaqah, gets charity, gets a reward for giving her husband charity. Does a woman get a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving her own husband charity? And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was kind of, belittling, kind of humiliating. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said to her, you go ask him. So Zainab went to the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she asked Bilal to go ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that if a woman spends money on her husband, gives her husband charity, will she receive a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes, she actually gets 2 rewards. She gets 2 rewards. The reward of the sadaqah, of the charity, and the reward for keeping family ties. Your spouse is your family. Your spouse is your family. Your spouse is your family. And the best person that you can spend your wealth on is your family. Let your wealth be an asset to the life of other people. Right? We can't even fathom that. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَا نَفَعَنِي مَالٌ قَطْ أَكْثَرَ مِنْ مَالِ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. No wealth has ever been of more benefit to me than the wealth of Abu Bakr. No wealth has been more beneficial to me and my mission than the wealth of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Let your wealth be an asset. Let your wealth be an asset to the lives of other people. There's no feeling greater than to see your neighbor struggling with something, to walk out your house and see a kid outside with some, sneakers that are, roughed up a little bit, and then you go back in the house and you grab, a couple of pair of sneakers that you have or your children have, and you go give it to someone, and then to see them wearing it, Wallah al-Azim, there's no feeling greater than that. There's no feeling greater than seeing someone who was homeless sitting out in front of a store begging for money, and you said, listen man, you hungry? And the guy says yes, and you tell him, go in the restaurant, order what you want, whatever you want, I got it. And you pay for it. You walk away. There's no feeling in the world better than that. To have benefited somebody else's life. For a friend to call you and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with my rent this month. You got a couple of dollars that you can help me out with. You say, sure, I got it. You caught me at the right time, man. How much you need? How much you need? I need a couple of hundred, man. I need like 200, 300. I got it. Don't worry about it. And you ain't even got to give it back to me. I got it. Don't worry about it. Bismillah, take it. You caught me at the right time. When I got it, I got it. If I don't, I don't. But you caught me at the right time. It's no feeling better than that. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا نَفَعَنِي مَالٌ قَطْ مِثْلَ مَالِ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. No wealth has been more beneficial to me ever than the wealth of Abu Bakr. Here's the big one. How about your love? Let your love be an asset to the lives of other people. Sometimes we say, I love you. However, the person that we're telling, I love you, their lives have not become better because we say we love you. You understand? When you tell somebody you love them, that love should manifest in a way where that person's life becomes better because of your love for them. Stop telling people I love you, but their life is still in the same miserable, pitiful state that they were in before you said it. You understand? Love is a verb. Love is not a noun, it's a verb. It shows action. Love is just a word until someone comes along and gives it meaning. It's just a word until somebody comes along and gives it context. So we say and telling people we love them. We tell our spouses, I love you. We tell our children, I love you. But has our love permeated that relationship to the point of change? Of becoming an asset to the person's life? Is your love adding value, or is your love draining the value of other people? Some people, we say, I love you, but that means that I need more money, I need more sexual relations, I need you to exhaust yourself a little bit more for me. So some of us, our love is draining the value out of other people, right? But not adding value to the lives of other people. We telling everybody, you telling mom we love her, but you always got your hand out. You telling dad, you telling pops you love him, but you always got your hand out. You telling your wife, I love you, but then you always asking for something in return to that love. You telling your husband, I love you, but you always asking toxic love. Very good. Toxic love. Because your love is draining. Some of our children, they drain us with their love. Ma, I love you. Dad, I love you. But I'm always going to the juvenile correctional facility to hear you say, I love you. I'm always going to the juvenile correctional facility and looking at you behind a wall telling me you love me. If you love me, stop hurting me. You understand? Every time you tell your spouse, I love you, it's because she's crying. Some tears is coming out of her eyes. I only hit you because I love you. That's not love. If you love me, stop hurting me. That's not love. Your love is draining. It's toxic. And your love is not replenishing. Your love is not adding value to the lives of other people. You understand? When we say we love people, man, our love should be adding value to other people, man, not draining people. It's like every time you tell me you love me, I feel like I'm more drained than I was before you said it. Stop telling me you love me. Stop saying you love me. Because every time you say you love me, I end up crying. I end up feeling depleted. I end up feeling empty. Every single time you say it, stop saying it. Because your love is draining. Your love is not adding value to my life. We want the type of love that when I say I love you, your day brightens up. Whatever was going on in your life prior to me uttering those words are no longer a factor in your life. The moment you hear those words, nothing else matters because your love added value to that person's life. Let me show you how this works in real life. There was two companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Salama and Salama, who were married for a long time, from the very beginning. And Abu Salama, when the Muslims began to migrate to Medina, they began to migrate from Mecca to Medina, Abu Salama, Salama, and their child Salama were trying to leave to go to Medina. His tribe and her tribe stopped them from leaving Mecca. They told Abu Salama, you can go, but we're keeping our daughter and we're keeping our son. You cannot go. So they separated a man from his wife and his child. Abu Salama went off to Medina by himself, leaving his wife and his child behind. Salama used to go out every day and stare out into the mountains, wishing that she had another opportunity to leave with her husband. Eventually, the tribes decided to let Salama go. But she had to go and travel from Mecca to Medina all by herself. So she took a couple of water skins, some dates, her child, and she set off on an animal heading towards Medina, a 2-week journey on a slow animal. There, as she's traveling, she met a non-Muslim who decided to travel along with her, saw her traveling by herself, and could not stand to let this woman travel by herself, so he traveled along with her. Finally, Salama reaches Medina, reunites with her husband. Years go by, and then Abu Salama gets sick, and he's on his deathbed. Abu Salama asks a request of his wife in the event of his demise. He said, if I die, I need you to make this final request for me. She said, anything. What do you want? He said, when I die, I want you to ask Allah to give you a better husband than me. When I die, I want you to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives you a better husband than me. Salama said, okay. After Abu Salama died, Salama said that it was very difficult for me to fulfill the final request of my husband because I didn't see another man to be better than Abu Salama. I couldn't make this dua. That's love. That's love adding value to somebody else's life. She said, I would much have rather been single for the rest of my life because I didn't see another man, right, I didn't see another man to be better than my husband Abu Salama. That's love, adding value to someone's life. How many of us as men could leave our wives right now, leave our wives right now, and our wives be completely content until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them back? Many of our wives will be looking for another spouse soon as their iddah period is over with. And the moment they remarry, they will never even remember us, because the happiness that they're experiencing with their new spouse trumps the misery that we have caused in many of their lives. How many of us men can say right now that we loved our spouses so much that she is filled? She's filled. I filled her cup. She doesn't need anyone else. That I could die right now and my wife, I loved her so much, she wouldn't need another man. That is when you know your love has added value to the lives of people. The Prophet ﷺ, listen to this. The Prophet ﷺ said to Aisha, he said, لا أبالي بالموت منذ أن عرفت أنك زوجتي في الجنة. Aisha said to the Prophet ﷺ, لا أبالي بالموت منذ أن عرفت أنك زوجي في الجنة. Aisha said to the Prophet ﷺ, I don't care about death. I have no worries about death from the moment that I learned that you was going to be my husband in Jannah. You understand? That's love adding value. He loved her to such a degree that she didn't even care about dying anymore. Salama loved Abu Salama to such a degree she didn't care about his death. She was okay being single. She was okay being single. That's how fulfilled she was with the love of her husband. Aisha said that I don't care about death. لا أبالي بالموت. I don't care about death. منذ أن عرفت أنك زوجي في الجنة. She said, I don't care about dying from the moment I learned that you was going to be my husband in Jannah. I don't care about death. Death doesn't bother me. Death doesn't bother me. So understand, brothers and sisters, how important it is to add value to the lives of other people. If we say we love people, if we say that, we're friends to people, if we say that, even with children, are we adding value to the lives of our children? Can our children say that since you are my mother or my father, my life has been nothing but perfect? Or will our children say, I hate you, I never want to see you again. The moment I get out of this house, I ain't never coming back. I don't ever want to see you again. Are we adding value to the lives of other people the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala added value to our lives? Are we constantly subtracting from the value of the lives of other people that we come in contact with? This is Islam, brothers and sisters. This is Islam. An aspect of Islam anyway that, for one reason or another, emphasis is usually never placed on, these type of things. Leave people better than the way that you found them. Leave people better than the way that you found them. Brothers, if you are going to marry a woman, then add value to her life. If you are not going to add value to her life, then leave her the hell alone. Sister, if you marry this brother, make sure you're going to be an asset to his life. If you are not going to add to his life, the beauty of his life, you're not going to add value to his life, then leave him the hell alone. Friends that we've broken up with, that we haven't spoken to in a while, no need to rekindle that relationship if the person was not adding value to your life or you wasn't adding value to that person's life. Why rekindle? Why rekindle a relationship with somebody that it was no value involved in it whatsoever? We have to start taking a more personal responsibility for the relationships that we enter. The relationships that we enter into have to have more meaning to it than just what you can get from the person at that moment. We exploit people. We exploit people. We have to stop exploiting people. This is what I wanted to present to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Periscope, I'll turn you back on for questions inshallah.